Well, good morning. This is Dave Jones with StormCenter Communications and GeoCollaborate. We've been monitoring Hurricane Helene all through the night and into this morning. And what we're seeing now is a rapidly intensifying hurricane. Hurricane Helene now has winds of 105 miles per hour. That's a Category 2. That has come from the National Hurricane Center's 11 a.m. update there in Miami. The storm is moving now to the north-northeast, roughly about 14 miles per hour, about 12 knots, over the loop current, which is a very warm, deep layer of oceanic temperatures in the Caribbean that comes up into the Gulf of Mexico. And now we are seeing evidence of rapid intensifying. As a matter of fact, some of the computer models, forecast models, are forecasting Helene to make landfall as a Category 4 hurricane. Others, not so much. The official forecast for Helene from the National Hurricane Center is for the storm to make landfall as a Category 3 storm with 120 mile per hour winds. You can see from the satellite picture, and you can see the terminator line there as the sun rises and goes towards the west coast. We have a very symmetric hurricane now. And one of the things I want you to notice is you have the hurricane here, which is has a very extensive wind field, already tropical storm force winds being felt along the southwest coast of Florida. I'll show you the buoys as well. I added those from some work that we're doing with NOAA and the Hurricane Research Division. But you can see a lot of moisture, tropical moisture being pumped up into a frontal system that is accentuating rainfall intensities. Just yesterday in Asheville, North Carolina, rainfall fell at such a rate where flash flood warnings are in effect and the rivers are very high. They can't take too much more rain and they're going to get lots of it. So it looks like we could see very devastating flooding in the mountains of the Appalachians there, including Asheville. But notice this moisture just pumping up here and then coming up into an upper level synoptic scale system, we call it, up in the eastern part of Canada. But you also see to the southwest here, that's Tropical Storm John, and it continues to pump a lot of moisture into southwest Mexico, 20 to 30 inches of moisture with devastating flooding there along the southwest coast of Mexico and some of the states there. We're going to keep an eye on John to see what it does. There's some interesting things that the models do with it. But I want to take you a little bit closer as well and show you the high resolution 1-minute satellite imagery of Hurricane Helene. Look at that. It's just incredible. You can see now an eye starting to form. This is called the central dense overcast. Thunderstorms erupting all around this system, and it is becoming more and more intense. Like I said, 105 mile per hour winds now. Hurricane Hunter aircraft are investigating the system, and it looks like it's undergoing rapid intensification. I wouldn't be surprised by the update around 2 o'clock this afternoon. We have higher wind speeds, and then the official update and new forecast from the Hurricane Center at 5 p.m. this evening. I wouldn't be surprised to see we have a Category 3 hurricane on our hands. It is just very, very impressive. Matter of fact, I want to put on here some wind speeds. I'm going to take this full screen, and you can see the wind speeds going around this hurricane along with the 1-minute satellite imagery of Hurricane Helene. And what I want you to notice here is this colored area in here. These are some of the strong winds. This is the strongest wind around the eye wall here, which is always typical when you have a hurricane. The strongest winds are around that eye wall, and if the eye closes off, that's when you have really a devastating hurricane where all sides of the hurricane are getting very strong winds. Typically, the northern and the eastern part, this is called sometimes the dirty part of the hurricane. It's called the most destructive part of the hurricane. On land, if you're in this area right here, that is when you get the strong winds and you add the speed of movement onto that. It's a vector, a wind vector. So you add those together. So if we had a wind of 120 miles per hour here and the storm was moving north at 14 miles per hour, you add those winds. So you would have a wind speed of 134 miles per hour. Needless to say, we have a strong storm on our hands. And if you look over here in the right-hand part, here's Tampa Bay right in here. Notice the winds are blowing from the south, southeast very strongly. So winds aren't really blowing into Tampa Bay, but the water that this storm is pushing is already impacting the land in southwest Florida from Naples on up into Sarasota. Flooding is already being reported at low tide. The tides are at what they should be at high tide. So when the tide gets high, we're going to have even more coastal flooding where there are storm surge warnings in effect. And it looks like in Tampa, we could see 5 to 7 or 8 feet of storm surge in there. I'll show you an image of inundation just in a little bit here. But this is really an example of what it looks like as far as the, take the winds off there, this major storm in the making. We'll start to see this eye clear out a little bit more, and it's just incredible. Look at the cirrus clouds here going clockwise. Meanwhile, at low levels, the storm is spinning counterclockwise. Just fascinating. There are, even though there are some strong gusty winds in central Florida, there's still bits of sunshine you can see from this satellite picture here. And I'll move this a little bit further down so you can see that the strong storms are brushing the coastline here as well. Now, if we move further to the north, here is where the storm is expected to make landfall right in the Big Bend of Florida. But these are intense thunderstorms just off the coast of Apalachicola, heading northward. So combined with yesterday's intense rainfalls just west of Tallahassee yesterday, rainfalls of 7 to 8 inches of rain, some areas locally 10 inches of rain already. So the soil is very much saturated. It can't take any more rain. And so I want to back out a little bit here and show you GeoCollaborate. I have currently, I'm not going to name them all. You can check locally with your National Weather Service office, your favorite broadcast meteorologist. There are a lot of watches, warnings, and advisories here in Florida. Take a look at this. There's tropical storm warnings in effect. There are these off the coast here, tropical storm warnings. We also have tropical storm warnings for South Carolina and inland. This storm has a very, very large wind field, as we've been talking about over the last couple of days. And I'll slip this up just a little bit. Well, let me just take GeoCollaborate full screen here so we can talk a little bit more in detail about what's going on. All of this is the peak storm surge along the west coast of Florida. And in the Tampa area, we have 5 to 8 feet that's still expected. If this storm wobbles a little bit further to the east, stronger winds are going to come on shore in western Florida. So I think we're going to get some surprise surges and some surprise flooding, a little bit more than what people might expect, because talk has been of the storm moving decently offshore, but the wind field is so large it is going to impact the entire state of Florida. And that's why the governor has declared a state of emergency. There's a state of emergency in Georgia, state of emergency in Kentucky, a state of emergency in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. Those governors have issued states of emergency because of the impacts of this massive storm. Now, what I want to do here is I want to turn on another a satellite image here. I was working with yesterday a combined image called the sandwich product, and that sandwich product is a coming from the meso scale image, and see what it looks like here coming in right off the coast of Florida. There you go, and look at that. You can see an eye forming. This is a meso image. This is showing all of the intense thunderstorms. Look at that. This is not like this because of any sun angle. It's actually enhanced by combining infrared and visible satellite imagery. These are gravity waves coming out of the center of the storm, showing that we are in a rapid intensification mode. If these thunderstorms wrap entirely around the center of the storm, which it looks like they're trying to do here, we will have a major hurricane on our hands in the next 6 hours. Hopefully, people along the coastline have heeded the warnings. I'll move this over just a little bit more. You can see Cape Coral here. Just to the north is Port Charlotte and Punta Gorda. Winds are still coming in strong from the south. I'll turn off here the warnings from the National Weather Service just so we can get a little bit more idea of what's going on. And there you go. You can see there's Lake Okeechobee, a tropical storm warning in effect there. Winds are going to get quite strong. As this storm intensifies, we'll be watching it in this meso sector to see how the thunderstorms are wrapping around the center. But this is just a spectacular satellite image of a maturing hurricane that's about to do a lot of damage in the state of Florida. If I go a little bit further to the north here, you can see what's going on. These thunderstorms are severe thunderstorms headed towards Apalachicola, headed towards the north. So that's what it looks like from the satellite perspective. I'm going to turn off this satellite picture because I want to add a couple of other pieces of information here that I think you'll find interesting also for the responding crews that are coming and staging to restore power. More than 20,000 crew members are responding from multiple states around the country to come in and restore power as quickly as possible. We'll be talking about that in just a moment. So I turned off there the mesoscale image, going back here to the state of Florida, where in the Big Bend area, we're expecting a 15 to 20 foot storm surge, 15 to 20 feet. And so now I want to turn on a image of the tropical storm wind probabilities. And this is quite incredible. I'll back out here just a little bit so you can see. Look how large this tropical storm wind field is around this storm. Notice here's the center of the storm, roughly in this area. The winds extend much further to the east through the tropical storm winds. As a matter of fact, let me just do a quick little measurement here. I'm going to do a measurement of the width of the tropical storm force winds. Close that. And this is tropical storm force, high probability of the winds. That is 379 miles. 379 miles wide for tropical storm force winds. And this is going to sweep across Florida, Tampa, St. Pete. You will easily be in the tropical storm force winds and may come very, very close to hurricane force winds as this storm comes in and up and over Tallahassee. It is still forecast by the National Hurricane Center to make landfall south of Tallahassee. So some of the strongest winds are likely to come through the city of trees that has never been hit by a Category 3 hurricane in its history. They've dealt with Category 1 storms before. But look at the probability extending well up into Georgia of tropical storm force winds, even up towards Atlanta, where they are going to be likely. The winds die down very quickly as the storm dissipates. However, higher elevations in the Blue Ridge are likely to see tropical storm force winds, which means a lot of trees down and branches down, which is going to affect power in this entire area. You can see the cone that just popped on. Look at the impacts well outside of the cone. If this doesn't tell you not to pay attention to the cone when you're making decisions, I don't know what will, because these winds are extending far beyond. So I'm going to turn on now the expected arrival of the tropical storm force winds. And this is the most likely time of arrival. By 2 p.m. this afternoon, tropical storm force winds will be well through Tampa. They're already occurring in wind gusts, Tampa and south and along the coastline, Clearwater. But by 2 this afternoon, the tropical storm force winds will be through around Orlando and then on approaching Apalachicola. And then by 8 o'clock tonight, tropical storm force winds will be occurring in southern Georgia, all of Florida, basically, all of Florida, and then moving into central Georgia. This is going to be a devastating hurricane. It's going to have widespread impacts, power outages. I just please ask those of you that are watching, trying to make decisions, be very patient. Be very patient with power restoration activities because it takes a long process to assess damage and then get out and send crews to start restoring power. And there is a priority for restoring power. And residences are not at the top of the priority list. Critical infrastructure, hospitals, things like that are at the top. But by Friday at 2 a.m., you see this? Tropical storm force winds in Atlanta. So you're talking 2 o'clock in the morning. That's after midnight tonight. You should start to see the winds increase steadily. And even high-rise buildings in Atlanta will feel even a higher wind speed because you're away from those frictional effects of land. So I'll turn these two, the wind probability off and the tropical storm wind arrival. I'll leave that on for a second because I do want to talk about now the wind threat. Where is the biggest wind threat from this storm? And so I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, and you'll see in the purple area that you see, including Tallahassee, are winds that are expected to be more than 110 miles per hour. That's in this area right here, more than 110 miles per hour when this storm makes landfall. Could be higher winds if this storm is going to make landfall with 120 mile per hour winds or higher. We could see higher wind gusts in this purple area. That is going to cause massive tree damage. As a matter of fact, in here, it says structural damage to sturdy buildings, some with complete roof and wall failures, complete destruction of mobile homes, damage greatly accentuated by large airborne projectiles such as pieces of roofs, tree limbs, tree branches. Locations may be uninhabitable for weeks or months. Florida State University let their students and faculty know to expect a long time away from school. So a lot of perhaps online learning if that infrastructure is even there to support it. Up into the red area. Let's talk about this red area here. This is potential impacts include considerable roof damage to sturdy buildings, with some having window, door, and garage door failures, leading to structural damage. Mobile homes severely damaged, with some destroyed, accentuated by airborne projectiles. Many large trees snapped or uprooted. Some roads impassable from large debris, and more within urban or heavily wooded places. Several bridges, causeways, and access routes will be impassable. Large areas with power and communication outages. So some advice here is to make sure all your mobile devices are charged, your computer, your laptop is charged. The major communication companies, Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, those folks will be out to assess damage, but you may not have cell service. That may not exist if these towers are blown down. Not saying that they will be, but some of them will be impacted. And these companies are great. They will bring in portable antennas to give you power and signals, but that takes time. Now, moving up here into the Macon area in central Georgia, in the orange area where winds are expected to be 58 to 73 miles per hour. By the way, this red area, if I didn't mention it, this red area is 74 to 110 miles per hour. 74 to 110 miles per hour. In the orange area, where 58 to 73 mile per hour winds are expected, this is the kind of damage. Some damage to roofing and siding materials, along with damage to porches, awnings, carports, and sheds. A few buildings experiencing window, door, and garage door failures. Mobile homes damaged, especially if unanchored. If you know anyone who are in mobile homes that have unanchored mobile homes, please try to get them to go elsewhere. Unsecured lightweight objects become dangerous projectiles. That means if you're in an area here in central Georgia, and I know you folks haven't experienced a tropical storm or even a hurricane before, this is winds of 58 to 73, so this is right on the edge of hurricane force winds. Bring any loose objects inside. Protect your homes and your neighbors' homes by bringing things inside. Also, check on your neighbors. If you know you have an elderly neighbor, please check on them, make sure they're okay, invite them to your house, and help take care of your neighbors. That's where America comes together during these trying times when we're threatened with a major storm. Make sure your neighbors are safe. Several large trees snapped or uprooted, but with greater numbers in places where trees are shallow rooted. There's been a lot of rain in this area. There will be a lot of rain. Shallow rooted trees will be blown over. Some roads impassable from large debris and more within urban or heavily wooded places. A few bridges, causeways, and access routes will be impassable. Now you can understand why we're saying this could be weeks to restore critical services in these areas because of the impact of this hurricane. Now, I'm going to widen out here a little bit, and we'll talk about the yellow area. Yellow area extends all the way from Florida up into Georgia, Alabama, eastern Tennessee, and southwestern North Carolina. That includes the higher elevations here, like Asheville. And look, most of South Carolina. This is what you can expect. Damage to porches, awnings, carports, sheds, and unanchored mobile homes is possible. These winds in this area expected to be 39 to 57 miles per hour. Remember, the wind field on this storm is so large, there's tropical storm warnings in South Carolina and a storm surge expected of 1 to 3 feet. That's 1 to 3 feet in this blue area here. That's from Charleston all the way down to the Palm Coast, just south of Jacksonville and south of Daytona in this area here, 1 to 3 feet on the eastern side of this storm. But back to the yellow areas. Some large limbs may break from trees. A few shallow-rooted or weak trees may snap or be knocked down. Some fences and roadway signs will be damaged. A few roads may become impassable due to debris, particularly within urban or heavily wooded places. Hazardous driving conditions are possible. When this storm gets close to you, do not get out there and drive. Bridges close when winds reach tropical storm force. That is 39 miles per hour. So bridges will be closed in most states at that wind speed. Hazardous driving conditions are possible, especially for high-profile vehicles on bridges and other elevated roadways. Scattered power and communication outages are possible. I do want to point out that in this particular forecast update, it's a change here. Atlanta is no longer in the 58 to 73 mile per hour winds expected. The high-rise buildings in Atlanta could experience hurricane force winds. Down towards the surface, this has been reduced somewhat. But I must emphasize, if Helene increases in intensity to a high-end Cat 3, 120 miles per hour, or goes into Cat 4, these will likely be extended north again. So Atlanta, prepare for hurricane force winds. That is winds above 74 miles per hour. even though the official National Weather Service forecast has the winds not quite reaching Atlanta of 58 to 73 miles per hour. The possibility is really there because of the strength of this storm, and it's expected in its current round of rapid intensification to be intensifying as it makes landfall. We're going to watch this very, very closely. Okay, what I want to do here now is just show you a couple of the observations that are happening. I'm going to see if we have another satellite picture here of the meso sandwich image and see what that looks like here. That's a little bit further south. Let's see what happens when I zoom in here closer. There we go. So now we have the meso picture on, and I'm going to turn on some ocean observation data. Some ocean observation data to show you just what's happening very quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I do want to show you that ocean observations are critical during this period of time. And I'm going to turn on the buoy data from the National Data Buoy Center. That's part of the National Weather Service out of Mississippi, coastal Mississippi. And I want to zoom in here just to show you a couple things. So right now, these are all buoys. These are observations out in the ocean taking measurements. Now, not all of them are working right now, but a lot of them are. Of particular interest, I'm going to scroll up here just a little bit. Look at these buoys right here. These are called wave drifters. These are spectral drifters that were dropped from the Hurricane Hunter aircraft yesterday, and they are measuring the waves that have come through from the Hurricane Helene. And the waves right now from this one, 23.3 feet. 23-foot waves here. And we can look and see the sea surface temperature and also wave data when it's logged and made available. So 23-foot waves here. Here's a buoy that's very close to the center of the storm right now. No recent data. It's having a little bit of trouble reporting data. On the right side of the storm, look at this. Significant wave height, 27.2 feet. 27-foot waves out here, and they are propagating at a rate that's headed, a direction that's headed towards the coastline. Doesn't mean that they'll be 27 feet when they reach the coastline, but the wind-driven waves are going to be battering western Florida, the Gulf Coast of Florida, and this is going to result in significant overwash and surge. This particular one, winds are gusting well into tropical storm force right now, and looks like water temperature 85.8 degrees. That is a very warm Gulf of Mexico. This one down here, the dry Tortugas, here near the dry Tortugas, look at this one, gusting to 52.5 miles per hour. This one does not collect wave data. There are ones closer to St. Petersburg and Tampa. Here we have winds gusting to 46.7 miles per hour. This is a huge wind field. Let me put on that wind field, the forecast wind field from the National Hurricane Center as we take a look at what is going on. So here's the wind radii forecast. I'll turn that on, and here you go. I'll back out just a little bit here. I'll turn off that satellite image and get that out of the way, because when I have that on, it really does look a little bit too crowded to explain anything that's going on. So the satellite image, let's turn that off. And we'll turn off the buoys as well, the ocean observations. I just wanted to point out that these surface observations are critical for giving us the information that we need so we can provide forecasts of inundation. But this is the wind field forecast. Take a look at this. Let me back out just a little bit. This is the wind field forecast when the hurricane is in major hurricane status, winds of 115 miles per hour. when it's just to the northwest of Tampa, this is when the winds are going to be screaming into Tampa Bay, when we can start to expect major storm surge to happen. And that's later this afternoon into this evening. We expect a landfall of this hurricane in the Big Bend area south of Tallahassee around between 9 and 11 o'clock tonight. That is when landfall is likely to happen. But I want to do a little measurement here just to show you, and then I'll wrap this up. A little measurement here showing the width of the tropical storm force winds. From there to there is reading 445 miles. That is a big storm. As a matter of fact, this goes down as one of the top size storms in the Gulf of Mexico to have landfall along the Gulf Coast. One of the top storms with its wind field size. So this is nothing to play with. I think we're going to see more inundation along the West Coast than you might expect if you live there. 8 to 12 foot storm surge expected just north of Clearwater, and then the 15 to 20 foot storm surge in the Big Bend area. Okay, so I'm going to back out here. I want to point out a couple of other things as well, and that is cover the flood risk again. So I'm going to go back here to GeoCollaborate and split screen to show you what kind of inland impacts are expected from this storm. This is a 3-day flood risk. I've shown this in GeoCollaborate, but I've made it a separate graphic just to point things out here. Anywhere in the purple that you see, and you see there's some around Asheville, North Carolina, extreme western South Carolina, we're talking about impacts here of devastating flooding. I can't say it any other way. The soil is already saturated. So we're looking today in these states for flooding. Friday in those states that are listed: Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia. We have two systems that are coming together. It's this tropical system, this intense tropical storm, which is Hurricane Helene, and also an upper level system that's going to draw in the moisture and kind of help squeeze it out even more. And then Saturday, all of the green area that you'll see flooding going on, because the storm is going to slow down. So Saturday, pretty much the same areas as Friday. You can include Maryland. As a matter of fact, Maryland had a couple of flash flood warnings today, unrelated to the storm, but some of the moisture being squeezed out by a frontal system. So that's what it looks like for the flood risk. The wind risk here, and I've put on the key that we just talked about. The wind threat extends far inland, way far inland, much further than usual with a hurricane, because this is so large and getting larger as it intensifies. We expect these impacts to happen today, later today, through Saturday. The storm will dissipate rather quickly, so the wind impacts will be much less on Saturday and probably be confined to high elevation areas in the Appalachian Mountains. So that's what it looks like for the wind threat. Now, I do want to point out something because we have a lot of utility trucks that are staging. This picture was taken this morning, courtesy of Dustin Williams, in a part of Florida where they're outside of the the big impact zone. But just rest assured that there are many, many utility crews that have come from around the country through the Mutual Assistance Program that are ready to get in as soon as it's safe to do so to restore power. A lot of power is going to be out. I would not be surprised to see more than 1 million customers out of power from this storm. Just please be patient, but know that the Edison Electric Institute and the investor-owned utilities are all pulling together in times of need, and that's what they do, so we can get those lights back on and services reconnected for critical services to be provided. And also, I want to mention there's an emergency fuel, and the Energy Marketers Association of America has pulled together. This is not mutual assistance, but it's cooperation between a whole bunch of fuel providers. And those providers are willing to deliver fuel in disaster areas if you, as a business, a small business, a government agency, need fuel in disaster recovery. The EMA Disaster Fuel Response Program is in place and it's up and running. They connect companies and partners responding to disasters so you locally can get fuel where you need it. It's not at the citizen level. This is for professional organizations, companies, governments. If they need fuel, the Fuel Marketers Association can really step it up and get fuel delivered by partners all around the country. They deliver fuel when and where it's needed. And if you have a need, contact Sherry Stone. She is standing by with email or phone number. You can give her a call there. Again, this is not for individuals in your homes to call. This is for larger companies who can then distribute fuel into those disaster areas. And so that's it for this update. I was going to show some model data, but it's gotten way too long. I apologize for that. But this storm is a big one. It is continuing to strengthen. We're watching it on this satellite image. And I'll tell you, this storm is going to pack a punch. The National Hurricane Center said it could even pack a punch as a very strong Category 3 hurricane with the door open to it getting to Category 4. This is going to cause a lot of impacts, folks. Be patient. Thanks for watching this update. We'll have another one later this afternoon after the 5 p.m. official Hurricane Center update. This has been produced for the All Hazards Consortium and the Sensitive Information Sharing Environment, so we can share information across private sector organizations, public sector liaisons, private sector liaisons, and the federal government, so everybody can be on the same page at the same time with this critical information. Again, for those of you in the SISE, this will be updated to the SISE portal. Also, you have direct access to GeoCollaborate to display any type of information that you want in there related to the storm. You can query that information live, and that dashboard is available 24/7. So for now, I'm Dave Jones with StormCenter Communications and GeoCollaborate. Thanks so much for watching this update. We'll be back once again around 6 o'clock Eastern time this evening when Helene is much closer to landfall. There'll be lots of flooding going on during the day on the west coast of Florida. And please be safe and take care of your neighbors.